Katie Morrison walked slowly down the busy hallway of New Geneva University. Her white cane tapped against the floor as she moved between groups of students. The sounds around her told her everything she needed to know. Human voices mixed with the clicking sounds of the insect-like zephyans and the deep rumbling tones of other alien species. She had been a student here for 2 years now. The university was one of the first on Earth to welcome students from across the galaxy after humans joined the Galactic Federation in 2357. Katie loved the diversity of sounds and voices that filled the halls each day. Her cane found the familiar doorway to Stellar Grounds Cafe. The smell of coffee and sweet pastries filled her nose as she stepped inside. The morning rush was ending, and the cafe was settling into its quieter study period. "Good morning, Katie," called out Sam, the human barista behind the counter. "The usual?" "Yes, please," Katie replied with a smile. "Large coffee, 2 sugars, and a blueberry muffin." She made her way to her favorite corner table. It was tucked away from the main traffic, but close enough to the window that she could feel the warmth of the morning sun on her face. Katie had claimed this spot during her first week at university, and most students knew to leave it for her. As she settled into her chair, Katie heard heavy footsteps approaching the table next to hers. The footsteps were different from human steps. They were heavier, more deliberate, and seemed to shake the floor slightly with each step. Katie pulled out her tablet and activated the voice reader. She was working on an assignment about human literature for her diplomatic studies course. The computerized voice began reading passages from ancient Earth poetry. At the next table, she could hear someone typing on a device. The typing was slow and seemed frustrated. Every few minutes, she heard a low rumbling sound, like someone clearing their throat or breathing heavily. After about 20 minutes, Katie heard the sound of something small hitting the floor and rolling. She paused her tablet and listened as the object rolled under her table. "Excuse me," came a deep, gravelly voice from the next table. "I think I dropped my stylus." "It might have rolled your way." Katie reached down and felt around the floor near her feet. Her fingers found a small metal object about the size of a pen. She picked it up and held it out toward the voice. "Is this it?" she asked. "Yes, thank you," the voice replied. There was surprise in the tone, as if the owner hadn't expected. "Help!" Katie heard the chair scrape as the person at the next table moved closer to take the stylus. As he reached for it, she felt a brief touch against her hand. The skin was rough and warm, warmer than a human hand should be. "I'm Katie," she said, deciding to be friendly. "I sit here most mornings." There was a pause. "I'm Vex," came the reply. "This is only my second time here." "Are you a student too?" Katie asked. "Yes, I'm taking some courses," Vex said. His voice was careful, as if he was choosing his words slowly. "I'm studying human culture and literature." Katie smiled. "That's one of my favorite subjects." "What are you working on?" "I'm trying to understand human poetry," Vex said. "But it's very difficult. The meanings seem hidden." "Poetry can be tricky," Katie agreed. "What poem are you reading?" She heard papers rustling at the next table. "It's called The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. I don't understand why the human chose one path over another, or why it made any difference." Katie's face lit up. "Oh, that's a wonderful poem. It's not really about roads at all. It's about choices and how we tell stories about our lives." "I don't understand," Vex said. Katie turned her chair to face his table. "Well, the poem is about a person walking in the woods who comes to a place where the path splits in 2 directions. He has to choose which way to go." "Yes, I understood that much," Vex said. "But here's the important part," Katie continued. "He says he'll probably never come back to try the other path. Then at the end, he imagines himself as an old man, telling people about how he took the path that fewer people had walked on, and how that choice changed his whole life." "But how does he know it changed his life?" Vex asked. "He never tried the other path." "Exactly," Katie said, excited that he was getting it. "That's the whole point. We don't really know if our choices matter as much as we think they do. But we like to tell ourselves stories about how we're special or different because of the choices we made." There was silence from the next table. Katie worried that she had talked too much or confused him. That's very wise, Vex said finally. Humans create stories about their choices to give meaning to their lives, right? Katie said. Even when we can't know if the story is true. And this is considered good poetry? Vex asked. Katie laughed. Well, I think so. A good poem makes you think about life in a new way. This one makes people think about how we understand our own choices. I see, Vex said. Thank you for explaining it. I would never have understood the hidden meaning. You're welcome, Katie said. What other poems are you reading? For the next hour, they talked about poetry and literature. Katie was impressed by how thoughtful Vex's questions were. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding human thinking, not just memorizing facts. Katie noticed some odd things about her new friend. His voice was deeper than most humans, with a slight echo to it. When he laughed, it sounded more like a low rumble. And he seemed to know things about other planets and species that most exchange students wouldn't know. You seem to know a lot about galactic politics, Katie said during a discussion about a poem about war. I've traveled quite a bit, Vex said carefully. I've seen many different worlds and cultures. That must be amazing, Katie said. I've always wanted to visit other planets. That's why I'm studying to be a diplomatic interpreter. A diplomatic interpreter? Vex sounded interested. You want to help different species understand each other? Yes, Katie said. I think communication is the most important thing in the universe. When people understand each other, they can solve almost any problem. Even when they're very different from each other? Vex asked. Especially then, Katie said firmly. Being different doesn't mean you can't be friends. It just means you have more to learn from each other. Katie heard Vex's chair creak as he shifted in his seat. You really believe that? Of course, Katie said. Some of my best friends here are from completely different species. There's this Zephyrian girl in my math class who clicks instead of talking, and a Centaurian guy who has to eat special food because regular food makes him sick. But they're wonderful people once you get to know them. And you're not afraid of them? Vex asked. Even though they're so different from you? Katie tilted her head, puzzled by the question. Why would I be afraid? They're just people like me. We all want the same basic things: friendship, understanding, a chance to learn and grow. But what if someone was very different? What if they looked ... frightening? I wouldn't know if they looked frightening, Katie said with a small smile. I've been blind since I was 7 years old. I judge people by how they treat me, not by how they look. The silence that followed was so long that Katie wondered if Vex had left. But she could still hear his breathing, that deep, rumbling sound. That's a very unusual way to see the world, Vex said finally. Maybe, Katie said. But it's the only way I know how to see it. She heard him gathering his papers. I should go to my next class. But thank you for helping me understand the poetry. You're welcome, Katie said. I'm here most mornings if you want to study together again. I would like that very much, Vex said. Until tomorrow, then? Katie listened as his heavy footsteps moved away from the table and out of the cafe. She sat back in her chair, smiling. She had made a new friend, and she was already looking forward to their next conversation. 3 weeks had passed since Katie first met Vex in the cafe. Every morning, she would arrive at her usual table to find him already waiting at the table next to hers. They had fallen into a comfortable routine of studying together and helping each other with their COURSEWRK. Katie was working on a paper about ancient Earth civilizations when she heard Vex's familiar heavy footsteps approaching. She smiled and waved in his direction. Good morning, Vex, she called out cheerfully. Good morning, Katie, he replied, settling into his chair. The chair creaked under his weight, just like it did every morning. I brought you something, Katie sighed, reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a small audio device. It's a recording of different human music from the past 500 years. I thought it might help you understand human culture better. She heard Vex pause in his unpacking. You brought this for me? Of course, Katie said. You mentioned last week that you were having trouble with your music appreciation assignment. This should help. Thank you, Vex said quietly. That's very thoughtful. Katie noticed that Vex's voice always became softer when someone was kind to him. She wondered if people weren't very nice to him normally. Maybe it was because he was from a different planet. Some humans still weren't comfortable around aliens. What are you working on today? Vex asked. I'm trying to finish this paper about the Roman Empire, Katie said. But I'm stuck on this one section about military tactics. I don't understand how they managed to control such a large area. Military tactics? Vex repeated. What specifically are you having trouble with? Katie opened her notes. Well, the book says they use something called the pincer movement in battles, but I can't picture how it worked. Ah, Vex said, and Katie could hear excitement in his voice. The pincer movement is actually quite simple. Imagine your enemy is standing in a line facing you. Instead of attacking them head-on, you send part of your army around to the left side and part around to the right side. Like making a circle around them? Katie asked. Exactly, but not a full circle. More like the claws of a crab, pinching from both sides. The enemy gets trapped in the middle and can't escape. Katie was impressed. You explain that much better than my textbook does. How do you know so much about military tactics? There was a pause. I've studied military history extensively, Vex said carefully. It's a hobby of mine. That's interesting, Katie said. Most people find military history boring. I find it fascinating, Vex said. The strategies, the decisions commanders had to make, the weight of responsibility they carried. Leading others in battle is not something to take lightly. Katie noticed that Vex's voice became deeper and more serious when he talked about leadership and responsibility. She wondered if he had been in the military himself, maybe on his home planet. You sound like you have personal experience with leadership, she said. In a way, Vex replied. I've had to make difficult decisions that affected many people. It's not easy to carry that kind of responsibility. I can imagine, Katie said. That must have been hard. It was, Vex said quietly. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choices. Katie heard the sadness in his voice. She reached across the space between their tables and patted the air until she found his arm. His skin was warm and rough, with an unusual texture that reminded her of leather. I'm sure you did your best, she said gently. That's all anyone can do. Vex was quiet for a moment. You always know the right thing to say. Not always, Katie laughed. But I try to be understanding. We all make mistakes. They worked quietly. A while. Katie typed her paper while Vex listened to the music she had given him. Occasionally, he would ask her questions about the songs or the time periods they came from. This music is very emotional, Vex observed. Humans put a lot of feeling into their art. Music is one of the ways we express emotions that are too big for words, Katie explained. When we're happy, sad, angry, or in love, sometimes a song can say what we can't say ourselves. That's beautiful, Vex said. My people don't have music like this. What kind of music do your people have? Katie asked. We have ... ceremonial songs, Vex said slowly. Songs about honor and duty and ancient traditions, but nothing like this. Nothing so personal. Maybe you could write some, Katie suggested. Personal songs, I'm not sure I would know how, Vex said. You could start by writing about your feelings, Katie said. What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What do you miss about home? Vex was quiet for a long time. I miss the feeling of being understood, he said finally. For most of my life, people have been afraid of me. They see me and think they know who I am, but they don't really know me at all. Katie's heart went out to him. That must be very lonely. It is, Vex said. Until I met you, I had forgotten what it felt like to have a real conversation with. Someone to be seen as a person instead of just ... what I appear to be. Well, you have me now, Katie said warmly. And I think you're a wonderful person, even though I'm different? Vex asked. Especially because you're different, Katie said. You see things in ways I never would have thought of. You make me think about ideas differently. That's what friendship is about. At that moment, Katie heard familiar footsteps approaching their table. She recognized the quick, light steps of her roommate, Lisa Chun. "Katie," Lisa said, slightly out of breath. "I've been looking for you everywhere. We need to talk." "What's wrong?" Katie asked, concerned by the worry in Lisa's voice. "It's about ... Lisa paused, and Katie could tell she was looking at Vex. "Can we talk privately?" Katie frowned. "Lisa, this is my friend Vex. Vex, this is my roommate Lisa." "Hello," Vex said politely, but his voice was cautious. Lisa didn't respond to the greeting. "Katie, seriously, we need to talk now. Is everything okay?" Katie asked, standing up. She was confused by Lisa's behavior. "I'll wait here," Vex said quietly. "Take your time." Lisa grabbed Katie's arm and pulled her toward the back corner of the cafe. When they were far enough away, Lisa began talking in a low, urgent voice. "Katie, what do you know about that guy?" Lisa asked. "His name is Vex. He's a student here, and he's been helping me with my studies," Katie said. "Why are you being so rude? Have you ever seen him?" Lisa asked. "Lisa, I can't see anyone," Katie said, getting annoyed. "What's this about?" "He's not human, Katie," Lisa said. "I've seen him around campus. He's huge, like 8 feet tall, and he always wears this big hooded jacket that covers his whole body. Nobody knows what species he is, but he's definitely not human." "So what?" Katie said. "Half the students here aren't human." "You're being prejudiced. This is different," Lisa insisted. "Other students are afraid of him. They cross the street. When they see him coming, the alien students won't even go near him." "Maybe that's because people like you are spreading rumors about him," Katie said angrily. "Vex is kind and intelligent and thoughtful. I don't care what he looks like." "Katie, you don't understand," Lisa said. "I'm worried about you." "What if?" "He's dangerous?" "He's not dangerous," Katie said firmly. "He's my friend. And if you can't accept that, then that's your problem." Katie turned and walked back to their table, using her cane to guide her. She could hear Lisa following behind her. "I'm sorry about that," Katie said to Vex as she sat down. "Lisa is just being overprotective." "It's all right," Vex said, but Katie could hear the sadness in his voice. "I'm used to people being afraid of me." "Well, I'm not afraid of you," Katie said. "And I don't care what anyone else thinks." "Thank you," Vex said quietly. "That means more to me than you know." Lisa stood behind Katie's chair for a moment, then walked away without saying goodbye. Katie felt bad about the argument, but she wasn't going to let anyone make her feel bad about her friendship with Vex. "I should probably go," Vex said. "I don't want to cause problems between you and your roommate." "You're not causing problems," Katie said. "Lisa is just being close-minded. Don't let her attitude bother you. I'll see you tomorrow?" Vex asked hopefully. "Of course," Katie said. "Same time, same place." After Vex left, Katie sat alone at her table, thinking about the conversation with Lisa. She understood that Lisa was worried about her, but she wished people would judge others by their actions instead of their appearance. Katie had always believed that everyone deserved a chance to be understood. Vex was proof of that. Behind his different appearance was a person who was kind, intelligent, and desperately lonely. Katie was glad she had been able to see past the surface to the real person. Underneath, she just hoped that other people would learn to do the same. Katie and Vex had been meeting in the cafe for 6 weeks now. Their friendship had grown stronger each day, and Katie looked forward to their morning conversations more than any other part of her day. She had learned that Vex was intelligent, thoughtful, and surprisingly gentle for someone with such a deep, powerful voice. This morning, they were working on a particularly difficult assignment about the Draconian Wars, Katie's diplomatic studies. Professor had assigned a paper on the conflict that had happened 30 years ago, when the Draconian Empire had fought against several smaller galactic nations. "I'm having trouble understanding the Draconian perspective," Katie said, looking up from her tablet. "The textbook makes them sound like mindless monsters who just wanted to destroy everything." Vex was quiet for a long moment. Katie could hear his breathing, that deep rumbling sound that she had gotten used to over the weeks. "What if they weren't monsters?" Vex said slowly. What if they were just trying to protect their people? What do you mean? Katie asked. Well, Vex said, his voice becoming more emotional, imagine you're responsible for millions of lives. Your people are facing threats from all sides. Other nations are forming alliances against you. They're spreading lies about your culture, making everyone afraid of you. Katie could hear the pain in his voice. Go on, maybe the Draconians didn't want to fight, Vex continued. Maybe they just wanted to be left alone. But when you're surrounded by enemies, sometimes you have to strike first to protect your own people. That's a very different way to look at it, Katie said thoughtfully. You sound like you understand their situation very well. Vex paused. I've studied the war extensively. I think the Draconians were misunderstood. They valued honor and loyalty above everything else. They weren't evil. They were just, afraid. Afraid? Katie asked. But they were supposed to be the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Being powerful doesn't mean you can't be afraid, Vex said quietly. Sometimes the most powerful people are the most afraid of all. They have the most to lose. Katie noticed that Vex's voice was shaking slightly. She reached across the space between their tables and found his hand. His skin was warm and rough with that strange texture she had noticed before. Are you okay? She asked gently. I'm sorry, Vex said. This topic brings up difficult memories. For me, were you affected by the war? Katie asked. More than you know, Vex said. I lost friends, good people who died because of decisions that had to be made. Katie squeezed his hand. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It was a long time ago, Vex said, but the guilt never really goes away. When you're in a position of leadership, every choice you make affects so many lives. You lie awake at night wondering if you could have done things differently. You talk like you were there, Katie said softly. In a way I was, Vex said. I've carried the weight of those decisions for 30 years. Katie was about to ask more questions when she heard commotion. From across the cafe, loud voices were arguing near the counter. She turned her head to listen. All aliens should go back where they came from, a human voice was saying. This is a human university. That's not fair, another voice replied. We have just as much right to be here as you do. Not creatures like him, the first voice said. Look at that thing in the corner. It's not natural. Katie realized they were talking about Vex. She felt anger rise in her chest. Ignore them, Vex said quietly. Used to it. That's not right, Katie said, her voice getting louder. They have no right to say those things about you. Katie, please, Vex said. Don't make a scene. It will only make things worse. But Katie was already standing up. She had dealt with prejudice her whole life because of her blindness, and she wasn't going to let anyone treat her friend badly. Excuse me, she called out to the arguing group. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. The cafe got quiet. Katie could feel everyone looking at her. That person you're talking about is my friend, Katie said clearly. He's one of the kindest, most intelligent people I've ever met. He helps me with my studies and he's taught me more about literature and history than most of my professors. You don't understand, the first voice said. You can't see what he really is. You're right, Katie said firmly. I can't see what he looks like, but I can see what kind of person he is, and he's a better person than anyone who would judge someone else based on their appearance. The cafe was completely silent now. Katie could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Just because someone looks different doesn't mean they're dangerous, Katie continued. Just because someone is from a different planet doesn't mean they don't deserve respect. We're all here to learn and grow together. Well said, came a voice from across the cafe. Then another voice agreed, and another. Soon several people were clapping. Katie sat back down, her face red with embarrassment and anger. She heard the group of troublemakers leave the cafe, grumbling to themselves. Thank you, Vex said quietly. No one has ever defended me like that. Before, I meant every word, Katie said. You're my friend, and I won't let anyone treat you badly. Even if you knew the truth about me? Vex asked. What truth? Katie asked. What if I told you that I've done terrible things? That I've made decisions that resulted in the deaths of thousands of people? That I'm not the good person you think I am? Katie was quiet for a moment. Everyone has done things they regret, she said finally. What matters is who you are now and how you treat the people around you. But what if the things I've done were unforgivable? Vex asked. I don't believe in unforgivable, Katie said. I believe in learning from mistakes and trying to do better. You have such faith in people, Vex said. Even people you don't really know. I know you, Katie said. I know you're gentle with me when you help me avoid obstacles. I know you. Get excited when you talk about books and ideas. I know you feel guilty about things that happened long ago. I know you're lonely and afraid that people won't accept you. And none of that bothers you? Vex asked. Of course not, Katie said. That just makes you human. Well, you know what I mean? Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. You're remarkable, Katie. I hope you know that. I'm just being a friend, Katie said. They worked quietly for the rest of the morning, but Katie noticed that Vex seemed more relaxed than usual. It was as if her defense of him had lifted a weight from his shoulders. As they were packing up their things, Katie heard her phone buzz with an emergency alert. The automated voice read the message aloud. Emergency alert. All students and faculty are advised to remain in secure locations. Hostile forces have been detected on campus. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Katie felt her heart racing. What's happening? I don't know, Vex said, but his voice had changed. It was no longer the gentle tone she was used to. Now it was sharp and alert like a soldier ready for battle. Katie, Vex said urgently, I need you to stay close to me. Don't leave my side. No matter what happens. Why? Katie asked, confused by the sudden change in his voice. Because, Vex said, and she could hear him standing up, I think our morning just became very dangerous. Katie could hear sounds from outside the cafe. Shouting, running footsteps, and something else. Something that sounded like energy weapons being fired. Vex, she said, reaching for his hand. I'm scared. I know, he said, his voice becoming gentle again. But I promise you, I will not let anything happen to you, no matter what. Katie believed him. She didn't know why, but something in his voice made her feel safe. Even as the sounds of chaos grew louder outside, she had no idea that she was about to discover the truth about her friend, and that everything she thought she knew about him was about to change forever. The emergency alert buzzed again on her phone. This time the message was different. Update. Hostile forces identified as Zeltharian extremists. They are targeting alien diplomats attending the Galactic Peace Conference. All students are to evacuate immediately. Katie heard Vex make a sound deep in his throat. It was unlike anything she had heard from him before. What's wrong? She asked. Katie, Vex said slowly, I think they're here for me. The sounds of chaos outside the cafe were getting louder. Katie could hear students running and screaming in the hallways. The emergency sirens were blaring throughout the building. What do you mean they're here for you? Katie asked, gripping Vex's hand tightly. I can't explain right now, Vex said. His voice was different now, full of authority and command. We need to get you somewhere safe. Katie heard him moving around their table, gathering things quickly. Stay right behind me, he said. Put your hand on my shoulder and don't let go. Katie did as he said. Even through his jacket, she could feel that his shoulder was much broader and more muscular than she had imagined. They moved toward the back of the cafe, away from the main entrance. There's an emergency exit back here, Vex said. We can get out through the kitchen. They had almost reached the kitchen door when Katie heard the front of the cafe explode inward. Glass shattered everywhere, and she heard heavy footsteps entering the building. Where is the Draconian commander? A harsh voice shouted. We know he's here. Katie felt Vex stop moving. His whole body went rigid. Keep going, he whispered to Katie. Get to the kitchen. Hide. I'm not leaving you, Katie whispered back. Katie, you don't understand, Vex said urgently. They're looking for me. If they find you with me, they'll hurt you too. Commander Vexther. The harsh voice called out again. We know you're hiding in this pathetic human disguise. Come out and face us." Katie felt the world stop around her. Commander Vexler. She had heard that name before in her history classes. Commander Vexler was the legendary Draconian military leader. The one who had led the Draconian forces during the war 30 years ago. "Vex," she whispered. "Is that really your name?" She felt him turn toward her. "Katie, I can explain everything. But right now, I need to get you safe." "You're him," Katie said, not as a question, but as a statement. "You're Commander Vexler? You're a Draconian?" "Yes," Vex said quietly. "I'm sorry I lied to you." Katie's mind was spinning. Her gentle study partner, the person who helped her understand poetry and brought her coffee every morning, was one of the most feared military commanders in galactic history. "We can smell you, dragon," another voice shouted. "Stop hiding behind these weak humans." Katie heard more footsteps entering the cafe. They were spreading out, searching. "There," one of them yelled, "in the back corner." Katie heard the sound of energy weapons charging up. Without thinking, she stepped in front of Vex. "No," she shouted. "Don't hurt him. Katie, get down." Vex yelled. She heard him moving behind her, and suddenly the air around them became very hot. There was a sound like thunder, and bright light flashed even though Katie couldn't see it. She felt the heat of energy beams passing over her head. "Impossible." One of the attackers shouted. "He deflected our shots." Katie heard sounds she had never experienced before. A deep, rumbling roar that shook the entire building. The sound of something huge moving through the air. The crash of tables and chairs being thrown around. "Katie!" Vex's voice called out, but it sounded different now. Deeper and more powerful. Echoing strangely. "Stay down." She crouched behind an overturned table, listening to the battle happening around her. The energy weapons fired again and again, but each shot seemed to be blocked or deflected. She heard the attackers shouting in fear and confusion. "How is he so fast?" one of them yelled. "Retreat!" another one shouted. "Call for backup." But Katie could tell they weren't getting away. She heard heavy impacts like something large hitting the walls. The sounds of the energy weapons stopped one by one until there was only silence. "Katie," Vex's voice called softly. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," she said, standing up slowly. "Are they gone?" "Yes," Vex said. "They won't bother anyone again." Katie turned toward his voice, but something was wrong. The voice was coming from much higher up than it should be. Vex was tall, but this was too high. "Vex?" she said uncertainly. "I'm here," he said gently. "But Katie, I need to tell you something. I don't look the way you think I do." Katie reached out with her hands, trying to find him. Her fingers touched something smooth and warm. It felt like stone, but it was alive. She moved her hands up and realized she was touching scales. "Oh," she whispered. "I'm sorry," Vex said. "I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid you would run away." Katie continued exploring with her hands. The scales were beautiful, smooth, and perfectly fitted. Together, she followed them up until she found what felt like a massive neck, much too large to be human. "How big are you?" she asked. "Very big," Vex said sadly. "Too big to fit in human buildings properly. I've been hunched over and cramped every day just to sit at that tiny table with you." Katie's hands found his face. It was long and narrow, with a muzzle like a great lizard. But his eyes, when she touched around them, were gentle. She could feel intelligence there and kindness. "You're a dragon," she said softly. "Yes," Vex said, "a draconian. We're what humans call dragons." Katie was quiet for a long moment, taking it all in. Her hands continued exploring his face, his neck, the powerful muscles of his shoulders. "You're beautiful," she said finally. "What?" Vex sounded shocked. "You're beautiful," Katie repeated. "I can feel the strength in you, but also the gentleness." "You're magnificent? You're not afraid?" Vex asked in disbelief. "Should I be?" Katie asked. "You're still the same person who helps me with my homework. You're still the person who brings me coffee and listens to my problems. You're still my friend." "But I'm a monster," Vex said. "Everyone says so. I've killed thousands of people. I've destroyed entire fleets. I'm the thing that parents use to scare their children. You're not a monster, Katie said firmly. You're a person who was trying to protect his people? You told me that yourself? You don't understand, Vex said. The things I've done, the orders I've given, ... Were you trying to hurt innocent people? Katie asked. No, Vex said. I was trying to save my people from extinction. Then you're not a monster, Katie said. You're a leader who had to make impossible choices. She heard footsteps running toward the cafe. Human voices shouting orders. Campus security is coming, Vex said. They'll see me. They'll be afraid. Then let me talk to them, Katie said. Let me explain. Katie, you don't know what you're asking, Vex said. When people see what I really... they panic. They call me a monster, a killer, a threat to everything they love. But I know what you really are, Katie said. You're Vex. You're my friend who loves poetry and worries about making the right choices. You're the person who's been lonely for 30 years because no one would give you a chance. Katie heard the security team entering the cafe. She heard them stop suddenly when they saw Vex. Nobody move. One of them shouted, We have a code red situation. Wait. Katie called out, stepping between Vex and the security team. Don't shoot. He's not dangerous. Step away from the creature, the security chief ordered. He's not a creature, Katie said firmly. His name is Vexter, and he just saved my life. Those attackers were here to kill him, and he protected me. That's Commander Vexter, one of the security officers whispered, the Draconian war leader. Yes, Katie said. And he's also a student at this university? He's been auditing classes and studying human culture. He's been my study partner for 6 weeks. That's impossible, the security chief said. Draconians don't attend human universities. This one does, Katie said. And if you give him a chance, you'll see that he's not the monster you think he is. She turned back toward Vex. Tell them why you're here. Vex was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was humble and tired. I came here to learn, he said. For 30 years, I've lived with the guilt of the war. I wanted to understand humans better. I wanted to find a way to bridge the gap between our peoples. And instead, you found a friend? Katie said softly. Yes, Vex said. I found the best friend I've ever had. Katie smiled and reached up to touch his face again. And I found out that dragons are even more wonderful than I imagined. The security team stood there in stunned silence, trying to process what they were seeing. A blind human girl standing next to a massive dragon, both of them covered in dust. From the battle, both of them smiling, it was the beginning of a story that would change everything. The next few hours were unlike anything Katie had ever experienced. News crews arrived at the university within minutes of the security team's report. The story spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication could carry it. A human student had befriended the most feared military commander in galactic history, and she had done it without even knowing who he was. Katie sat in the university president's office, still covered in dust from the cafe battle. Vex was outside in the courtyard because he was too large to fit in any of the buildings. She could hear his voice through the open window as he answered questions from Galactic Federation officials. Miss Morrison, President Williams said, leaning forward in his chair. Do you understand what happened today? My friend protected me from attackers, Katie said simply. Just like any good friend would do. Your friend is Commander Vexter, the president said. He's responsible for more military victories than any other living being. He's destroyed entire battle fleets. He's also the person who helped me understand poetry, Katie said. He's the person who brought me coffee every morning and listened when I talked about my dreams. He's the person who's been lonely for 30 years because everyone judges him before they get to know him. Dr. Amanda Ross, the university's head of alien relations, spoke up. Katie, the Galactic Federation wants to study your relationship with Commander Vexter. They want to understand how you were able to form a friendship with him when no one else has been able to. There's nothing to study, Katie said. I treated him like a person instead of like a monster. It's really that simple. But don't you understand how dangerous he could be? President Williams asked. Katie turned toward the window where she could hear Vex's voice. Do you know what he told me yesterday? He said he lies awake at night thinking about all the people who died during the war. He said he wishes he could bring them back. Does that sound like a dangerous monster to you? The room was quiet for a moment. Outside, Katie could hear reporters shouting questions at Vex. The Federation wants to hold hearings, Dr. Ross said. They want to understand how this friendship affects galactic security. That's ridiculous, Katie said, her voice getting louder. Vex isn't a security threat. He's a student. He came here to learn about human culture, and instead everyone wants to treat him like a criminal. Katie, President Williams said gently, you have to understand. Commander Vexler's presence here changes everything. Other species are already asking questions. Some are worried, others are curious. Good, Katie said firmly. Maybe it's time for everyone to ask questions. Maybe it's time for people to stop being afraid and start trying to understand each other. There was a knock on the door. Lisa Chun peeked her head in. Katie? They said I could see you for a few minutes. Katie smiled. Come in, Lisa. Lisa entered the room nervously. She looked at the officials, then at Katie. I wanted to apologize, Lisa said quietly. I was wrong about your friend. I saw what happened on the news feeds. He saved your life. He's a good person, Katie said. I tried to tell you that. I know, Lisa said. I was scared because he looked different. But seeing how he protected you and hearing how he talked to the reporters, I can tell he really cares about you. He does, Katie said, and I care about him. Dr. Ross cleared her throat. Katie, we need to talk about what happens next. The Draconian Empire has sent a delegation. They want to speak with Commander Vexler. Are they angry with him? Katie asked, worried. We're not sure, President Williams said. The Draconians haven't had much contact with other species since the war ended. This could be very important for galactic relations. Katie stood up. I want to be there when they talk to him. Katie, that might not be appropriate, Dr. Ross said. This is a matter of galactic diplomacy. Vex is my friend, Katie said. If people are going to judge him, then I want to be there to speak for him. You're just a student, President Williams said. I'm the person who knows him best, Katie said. I'm the person he trusts. And if the Federation really wants to understand our friendship, then they need to see how it works. 3 hours later, Katie found herself in the university's largest auditorium. The room had been hastily converted for the meeting. Vex sat on a specially built platform at the front of the room. Katie sat in a chair next to him, close enough to touch his massive foreleg. The Draconian delegation consisted of 3 dragons, each almost as large as Vex. They spoke in deep, rumbling voices that echoed through the room. Katie could feel their power, but she wasn't afraid. Commander Vexler, the lead delegate said, you have brought shame to our people by hiding among humans. Katie felt Vex tense beside her. She reached out and placed her hand on his leg, offering what comfort she could. I brought no shame, Vex said calmly. I came here to learn and to grow. That is not shameful. You befriended a human, another. Delegate said, you shared our military secrets. I shared nothing but friendship, Vex said. And I learned more about honor and loyalty from this human than I ever learned in battle. Katie stood up. The entire auditorium fell silent. Excuse me, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. May I say something? The Draconian delegates looked down at her with surprise. You are the human friend, the lead delegate said. You may speak. Thank you, Katie said. I want you to know that Vex never told me any military secrets. He never said anything bad about your people. In fact, he spoke about Draconians with great pride and respect. She turned toward where she knew the delegates were sitting. He told me about your honor and your loyalty. He told me about your ancient traditions and your beautiful culture. He made me want to learn more about your people, not fear them. And what did you teach him? The second delegate asked. I didn't teach him anything, Katie said. I just treated him like a friend. I listened to him when he was sad. I laughed with him when he was happy. I helped him with his homework and he helped me with mine. That is all. The third delegate asked. That's everything, Katie said. Friendship is the most important thing in the universe. It's what makes life worth living. The delegates spoke to each other in their own language, a series of growls and rumbles that Katie couldn't understand. Finally, the lead delegate spoke again. Human Katie Morrison, he said formally. The Draconian High Council has heard of your friendship with Commander Vexter. We came here expecting to find shame. Instead, we find something we have not seen in many years. What's that? Katie asked. Hope, the delegate said. Hope that our peoples can understand each other. Hope that fear can be replaced with friendship. Katie smiled. That's all I ever wanted. The lead delegate stood up, his massive form towering over the auditorium. Commander Vexter, he said, the High Council offers you a choice. You may return to the Empire and resume your military duties, or you may remain here and serve as our first cultural ambassador to the human worlds. Katie felt Vex shift beside her. What would that mean? It would mean building bridges between our peoples, the delegate said. It would mean teaching others what you and the human Katie have learned about friendship across species. Katie held her breath, waiting for Vex's answer. I accept, Vex said. But only if Katie will work with me. She knows more about bringing people together than anyone I've ever met. All eyes turned to Katie. She thought about her dream of becoming a diplomatic interpreter, about helping different species understand each other. Yes, she said without hesitation. I'd be honored to work with you. 6 months later, Katie and Vex had their own office in the Galactic Federation headquarters. The walls were lined with letters from students across the galaxy who had formed unlikely friendships. After hearing their story, every morning they still met for coffee. Vex had learned to hold a human-sized cup very carefully in his massive claws, and Katie had learned to read draconian poetry in Braille. Do you ever regret it? Vex asked one morning as they reviewed applications from universities wanting to start interspecies friendship programs. Regret what? Katie asked. Meeting me. Your life would have been simpler if you had just stayed. At your table that first day, Katie laughed. My life would have been boring. Besides, you're the one who taught me that the best paths are often the ones fewer people have walked. I taught you that? Vex asked, confused. Robert Frost taught me that, Katie said with a grin. But you helped me understand what it really meant. They worked together in comfortable silence, two unlikely friends who had changed the galaxy simply by choosing to understand each other. Outside their window, the city hummed with the voices of 100 different species, all learning to live and work together. Katie had never seen Vex with her eyes, but she had seen him with something much more important. She had seen him with her heart. And that had made all the difference.